Gizmo, Elle, Chang, and the Wing family are back in Gremlins The Wild Batch, second half, for more wild antics, this time going up against elemental spirits, ghosts, haunted mansions, and more kaiju monsters. Thanks in part to Warner Brothers, I was invited to participate in a roundtable discussion with the creative braintrust around Gremlins The Wild Batch leading up to the release of the second half of the series on Max, which I highly recommend for families and fans of the films. So of course you realize this means podcast.
Are you ready, eager young space cadets? Meep, meep. I saw a potent pain. That is the limit.
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Hello and welcome to This Means Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Graves, and it's just me today. However, I will be presenting you with my initial thoughts on the last half of the Wild Batch as well as audio for my interviews from Wondercon. I had the extraordinary opportunity to chat with Chun, Brendan Hay, Sherri, Chung, and Joe Dante alongside special guest John Glover for this, and it was a highlight for me as a fan growing up with these films and rooting for Gizmo to fight off the zany offspring we know as the Gremlins. This prequel series has a unique approach that I honestly felt added to the lore and brought in both Asian mythology and Western folktales as a fun and exciting backdrop to the action happening with young Sam Wing and Elle as they journey to the West to save Elle's mom and keep the world from crumbling beneath their feet. Literally. Here's a snippet of the panel featuring Joe Dante, Brendan Hay, and Chun discussing their approach to this new series.
You know, they left out the good part. I put them through the paper shredder, and all this green gook gets all over me.
Did you ever think you were going to come back to Gremlins, and especially even in animated form?
I didn't know where it went. But I'd like to get back.
By the way, that was John operating the gremlin, because in order for the gremlin to jump up on him, he has to actually put the gremlin on his arm.
And I don't even remember that part.
So immersed in the gremlin character, you forgot you had another arm.
And I just wish they'd showed the look. They thought there were too many children in the thing, so they didn't make it. And so kids
can see it on here.
And it's really cookie. Oh, so much fun.
Joe, did you ever imagine that the Gremlins mythos was going to be explored in animated form?
No, while I was making the movie, I didn't even think the picture was going to get finished. We were all amazed that the picture became so successful because it didn't have a lot of support from the studio because they sort of thought of it as Spielberg's hobby. And they go, let them do it. It doesn't cost that much. It'll make them happy. And then, it was so successsul so quickly that they had to immediately put out merchandising, which they had not planned to do. And so all of a sudden the Hasbro company was like working overtime to try to come out with these Gizmo toys. And also fuzzy little monster gremlins to put in your baby's crib.
Well, Sherri, I want to say congratulations to you, by the way, for your Emmy nomination on the first season. Woo! The music of this series is incredible, seriously. Can you talk about your inspiration behind your the music for the show and how it evolved from season 1 to season 2?
Yes, well, I mean, the inspiration is obviously Jerry Goldsmith, and you can't have any of Gremlins. I think there's nothing more, the only thing maybe more iconic than Jerry's Gremlins rag is like Gizmo and the Gremlins themselves. But it's an incredibly daunting task to begin with. I know that when I entered talks with Z and Brendan, a lot of it was, hey, we're definitely going to pay homage to what came before, what Joe Dante and Jerry had established, but we really want to do something of our own as well. So we do take place in the 1920s in Shanghai, and it was like lean into the traditional Chinese instrumentation, lean into the heart and the soul. And I remember there was even one, like in season 1, there was something where one of the gremlins was coming down with a big claw, and he was going to hit. So you never see blood in our show. But I was like, are you sure? We're going to tone this back a little bit? No, we got to spare them. Okay. So it was, it's a daunting task to kind of carry on a tradition in this way. way, but I think that just to their credit, and obviously the inspiration of the actors as well, it's just, you know, such an invitation to take what's there and expand upon it and evolve it, and in the best way that with all humility, the best way that I could, just a really dream come true for any film composer. I think we would all agree.
That's incredible. Z and Brendan, is there anything you guys can tease for what's to come later on in this season?
Sure. Okay, so we keep going through the West, so we get to hit a bunch more tall tales, folk tales, cowboy-ish kind of stuff spoken throughout. We have a Looney Tunes Easter egg pitched courtesy of Joe that makes it in there. We got great voice more guests along John's lines. We got Timothy Oliphant, we've got Keith David, and also, as you can see from the end of that episode, a lot more George Takei. So a whole lot more noggin, which I love.
Oh no, it's just going to be it's a big, sprawling, epic road trip through the West, and for fans of American Tall Tales, this should be a really fun back half of the season.
And then for Joe and John, how fun was it for you guys to get to see clamp history explored here in this episode?
Well, you never know how long these things are going to last, you know. But after Daniel Clamp, who of course was modeled after Ted Turner, and another famous rich person whose name I will not mention. We take no responsibility whatsoever. Nothing to do with us. Just when this script was written, the Gremlins 2 script was written, it was very common to have bad guys who were basically evil businessmen, and that was kind of the way that the script approached it. But John came in and completely turned it on its head, and to me is one of the keys to why Gremlins 2 works, is because Daniel Clamp is just this big kid, and he's got all this money and all this time, and he gets kind of bored easily, and he's like just he's not malicious, he's just weird, but he's very charming, and the way John plays him, he's practically the hero of the picture. So I think the addition of John to this franchise was a major boost to it.
You know, when we were doing this, and we started talking about the kid, because I had been in Joe's office, and he had all these little toys on his desk. I said, why don't we go get the toys and put them on my desk? So those in that movie, those are Joe's real toys. Because he's just a kid at heart.
Aren't we all, or would we be in the movie business?
I mean, Gizmo's like the greatest pet ever. I mean, it is at heart. It's a kid and a pet type of story. Whether it's Sam and Gizmo or Billy and Gizmo, that's a bond that I think we all get. We all kind of wish our pet could be that awesome.
And also there's the Gremlins themselves. I mean, kind of like what everyone wants to be. Like they eat candy, they stay up late, they stay up after midnight, they don't want to go outside. It's kind of it's a relatable story on all fronts, I think.
And I think it's the tone that Joe created is something that's like funny and scary and kind of its own unique thing, and that's really what we're trying to find.
The animation style is very striking but painterly. How did that come to be? Is that developed? Do you have an individual artist that you style that you love, or as a collaborative effort? I'd love to hear how that came up with those visuals.
Yeah, it was very early on. We wanted to make sure that the show looked unique, and part of that was working with a process where it was like 2.5D, where characters are CG, backgrounds are painted, but we really wanted a really painterly look to it. And along with our supervising producer, Dan Thrall, kind of the North Star of the show was we wanted it to look like one of the art of books, because sometimes you open up an art of book and it has beautiful concept art, and then it kind of gets sanded down over the course of the production. And so we still wanted it to look kind of like canvas and painted.
And also, because the original movies have that wonderful handmade quality, it's wanted to make sure we had some of that as a show.
But that was another thing that I really admire about this new version of the show, is because when the first Gremlins came out, Mr. Wing character was occasionally criticized for being a stereotype, which he who played the part did not agree. But I can see the point, although he is kind of a folklore fairy tale kind of character. But I think that in diffusing that, this version makes amends for anything that might have been bad. And I think it also it opens up a vista that is not explored in the first two movies, because the first two movies are all about people. But this, I think, is this franchise is so elastic that it seems to me that there's room for a whole lot of other things, which I think is why we do the West thing, which is sort of like what Back to the Future did when they went to the West. And it's there's a lot of stuff going on to exploit, and I think that the Asian American aspect of it is one of the most interesting features.
After the panel, I was able to sit down with each of them for a longer chat that delved deeper into what excited them about this continuation of the Gremlins world, the mythology and folklore, where it could go if we got a season 3, and of course, Looney Tunes influences and cameos. Thanks in part to suggestions by Joe Dante himself. That's right, the director of Looney Tunes Back in Action was suggesting Looney Tunes for Gremlins. I mean, Chuck Jones already had a big hand as far as making a cameo in the first film and doing animation for the intro of the second. So there was already a Looney Tunes footprint there that they wanted to bring into this series as well. And I'm just so glad and thankful that Looney Tunes follow Mr. Dante wherever he may go. And hi, John Glover.
Hello.
I'm so excited to talk to you. This is Jonathan with This Means Podcast. I cover Looney Tunes mostly, but tangential franchises as well, such as Gremlins. And I just wanted to talk about this series, which I love so much. Joe, whenever you were brought on as a consultant, did you have any, were there any aspects of the Wing family that you were excited to dive into, or were you just along for the ride and ready to throw out your Mogwai expertise?
Well, I was pretty much along for the ride, although I thought that the idea of going back to Mr. Wing as the lead character in the show as a child was really clever.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different milieu than the other movies, which are all contemporary. This is a period story, and it's a period story set in a place that's nowhere like anything in the movie.
Yeah.
And I just thought it opened up such opportunities and such vistas for the story that you wouldn't get if you just said, okay, we're going to make a third Gremlins movie and they're going to be in Oshkosh. This was, I thought, just an awfully clever idea, and I haven't been disappointed with the execution. It's been very well done.
It honestly has, and I'm so excited about the creature feature aspect within the series. We had Grimzilla, if you will, from the first, and going into here we have Western mythology brought in. Were there any examples of creature movies or film that you really were inspired by for next season?
So one of the big ones was we wanted to do an American haunted house type of thing. Some specific inspiration from Winchester Mystery House, but the episode itself, I know we were looking a little bit at The Haunting. The original of that was some influence there. Also, as the season kept going on, creature-wise, we definitely go back into a little bit of kaiju territory later. So that was a big inspiration on some stuff. And then actually, honestly, Looney Tunes really does come in two ways. We have a cameo, but then there's also one episode that is definitely our most Looney Tunes-esque story between two of the characters. So it feels like we got to do basically a little Looney Tunes short within an episode of Gremlins.
Amazing. I cannot wait to see that. And I heard from the panel that you inspired that, or you put out the idea for that.
Well, I mean, it sort of comes with the territory. When you get me, you get Looney Tunes.
I know.
I did a Looney Tunes movie. I was friends with Chuck Jones, and I knew Bob Klein, but I mean, I knew those guys, and they've, along with Mad Magazine, has pretty much formed the ethos of what I do. And I thought this last Day the Earth Flew Up was very well done.
Oh, yes.
It's very well done. It's very, very Clampett.
It is.
And interestingly, Warner Brothers said, we don't want that. Give it to those guys over there at the ketchup place. But maybe the Coyote versus Acme thing, which is on the shelf, stupidly, is actually going to get released by those guys. But I think Warner Brothers is sort of going like this with animation. It's the backbone of part of their company, and they just seem to be trying to box it.
It's very bizarre to see that. And you were involved in Warner Brothers Animation back in the day with the Riddler and voicing that character. And, I just, sticking with Looney Tunes though, I love the built-in, when you talk about Western mythology and Western animation, that's like quintessential for exploring that territory. And I felt that was, ingrained in doing a Western story. With Gremlins and how it's going, do you see that? Could we get into the war territory if there were more stories? And that's obviously where the mythos
that would honestly
was created.
Be the dream. That is
really?
The dream. We know we still have some time to cover, but Z and I have already talked okay, if there's a way that we can either time jump or get enough seasons to get to World War II, that seems like just such a fun, weird thing to say. So fun to hit World War II.
Right.
But for our purposes, it would be really cool to explore that with the Gremlins, with Mogwai.
Because that's where Bob Clampett put his gremlin. And
but also, the Disney had the Gremlins movie that Roald Dahl has written.
Right.
Which they didn't make as a feature, but they planned to make it.
Oh, wow.
And that's where the book came out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it was. It's definitely in the. I mean, in the first movie, we constantly reference that fact. So I think it's a great idea.
And you also put Chuck Jones in there as an Easter egg, or as a fan. You just wanted to have Chuck Jones be a part of it.
He was a friend of mine.
And was there any advice that Chuck Jones gave you as a storyteller or as an artist yourself that you carried on with you beyond Gremlins?
Don't trust the management.
Okay. Universally approved. Yeah, good advice. John Glover, your legacy with acting and being a part of this franchise is quintessential. Whenever you saw the final product that Joe made from Gremlins 2, were you taken aback by any of it, or were you like, yeah, this is the movie we shot?
I loved it. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gremlins 2 is so iconic with its imagery and its humor. Were there any moments on set that you remember, or is it all just kind of one cohesive thing now?
Getting covered with goop.
It's the green goop.
Yeah.
That's what I love best. It's the green goop.
Amazing.
And you can only do one take because we didn't have that many wardrobes.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, it took me a week to get all that green goop off me.
Well, thank you for your sacrifice.
Sure. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was a pleasure.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Are there any aspects of the animation, whenever you get it back, that you're surprised by? Because it is from, paper to, final product. There's obviously a lot of creative input. Are there any moments in season 2 that we can look forward to that you were surprised by?
Oh my God. All right. So there is a sequence in the last episode of season 2 that was my favorite section of storyboards, and it was definitely the fear of this is such a complicated section. The board artist did an amazing job, but almost too amazing of a job. I'm like, I am not sure how this is going to actually turn out, and it turned out amazing. It's my favorite part of the entire time working so far on Gremlins has been just seeing how that turned out.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. That was my roundtable with producer Brendan Hay, director Joe Dante, and actor and legendary actor John Glover. Next, we have Z Chun and Sherri Chung. Were there any aspects of Sam Wing's story that you were excited to delve into whenever you got the call that Amblin was wanting to do a Gremlin series like this?
Okay, so we'll go there.
Yeah, I think that what was so fun about, especially conceptualizing where Sam's starting point was, is, in the movies, he kind of has it figured out. He's kind of this wise old Chinese man.
Yeah.
And so we said to ourselves, well, ideally we make a lot of seasons of this, so how do we start him off as far away from it as possible? And so when you meet Sam in the first episode, really risk-averse, adventure-avoiding, kind of scaredy cat. And by the end of season 1, we felt he had conquered some of that fear, and so wanted to do a season 2 where Sam is like, oh, what is the next stage of his journey? How do we get him closer and closer to the old Mr. Wing that we meet in the Gremlins movies? And so that was really part of the fun of just conceptualizing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Were there any aspects of Gremlins, the franchise, that you wanted to definitely incorporate, such as the dark humor aspect, as you were, creating that journey for Sam to grow?
I think that we feel really lucky in that Joe's original movies create such a template in terms of there's such a variety of tones in the movies. It's funny, it's scary, it's weird, it's heartfelt. And so making sure that the show really incorporated those tones into the show were really important to us from the very beginning. And we also feel very lucky that Joe and Spielberg, Amblin, Warner Brothers, they really gave us a free hand in terms of whatever you want to do with the mythology, expanding why the Mogwai exist. We were really given a free hand for that. And to me, that was one of the most exciting things about the first season was how do you delve into where did the Mogwai come from? These questions, why do the rules exist? And season 2, seeing them on this other adventure in America was important to us from the very beginning of when we first pitched it.
Yeah. And I'll actually jump in and say too that I feel like in the same way that Amblin and Warner Bros. Animation were giving you the sort of green light to just go forth and do. I feel like I got the green light from Z and Brendan, for just saying, hey, listen, Jerry Goldsmith has set all this up, so go forth, but still do something that's like, unique to our show and expanding and exploring, developing like our own ideas that are unique to these characters and their journeys. But still, it was like some of it's set up. It's like the fans are expecting that. There needs to be some kind, and it works.
Yeah, it does.
You need to reinvent everything.
Right. And you've incorporated the Western mythos into your music. What instruments should fans listen for within the new season?
I mean, all the kind of really on the nose ones.
Okay.
Banjo, guitar, harmonica.
I think I heard the banjo and the harmonica the most in the new theme, but that's so exciting.
It's fun. There might be some horse clopping percussion instruments. It's like I said, I'm not reinventing unless I need to.
Right. I love that you guys are able to do such creative storytelling within this world. With Gremlins, do you see that there's a need to change anything for the modern era, or do you think kids are ready to check out a Mogwai whenever they're on screen?
I mean, those things still hit. One of the things I talked to Joe about early on was when kids walk into a toy store and there's a Gizmo there, they don't even need to know about the movie. They just fall in love with Gizmo. The Gizmo character design is just so appealing, I guess. And having gone to the Warner Brothers archives and seen the original puppets for the evil Mogwai as well, it's like those things hold up so well. And I think part of it is that the decision to use practical effects early on, and I think there's something that's very timeless about Gizmo.
Absolutely. Mogwais are so versatile. And you have Gizmo going through this identity crisis of evil and good. Could you explain the dynamics of what created that shift or what needed that shift to happen?
I think even though Gizmo is such a little defenseless character, I guess, in season 1, we wanted to kind of do something new with him this season. And we thought, well, what's the edgiest thing we can do? It's like the most terrifying existential thing that he could be going through is, what if he's turning into these things that he knows will destroy the world? And the fun of that kind of Jekyll and Hyde version of Gizmo was something we play with throughout the entire second season.
Amazing. I want to thank the panel for their time and Warner Brothers for sending me to Wondercon to cover Gremlins The Wild Batch, which is streaming April 10th. The series is fun and lighthearted. It keeps you guessing as to what is going to happen next. It's full of mystery. It's full of introductory horror elements. I was shocked what they got away with, but pleasantly surprised by the end result. I think these characters lend themselves to more stories, and as you heard Joe Dante and Brendan Hay say, they've already had discussions on where it could go, and that's World War II. I want it. And, Bob Clampett put the Gremlin in his short, and it was around World War II, missiles and those World War II fighter jets, and as well as Joe Dante himself mentioned a lot of World War II within the script of the first Gremlins movie. I would love to see this series take it to that, those links and see how it plays out, especially with this version of Gizmo and the Gremlins. So check it out. If you're remotely interested, I highly recommend it, and I hope we get more from this creative team. Thank you for listening, and I urge you to check out the series if you're even a casual fan. The writing on this show is thrilling, unexpected, and overall well thought out. And if you're like me, you'll keep clicking play next episode as soon as it populates on screen. You can follow the podcast everywhere you download podcasts. And as always, that's not all, folks, as you can be sure when you come back, I'll be discussing that Coyote versus Acme acquisition. Beep, beep.
Bill! Mr. Clamp, sir, are you okay?
Yeah, I think so. I hate using these machines myself.
Sir, we have a serious problem here. Mr. Clamp, we have a situation. Oh my God.
Have you seen Gremlins, The Wild Batch? And if so, what were your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below.